Good afternoon, folks. If there's any children in the room right now, I suggest you get them out of there because there's going to be a lot of foul language in this episode. Starting now. Alright, folks. This is the last day of our freedom. Because tomorrow, Star Wars style. When President Donald Trump took office, it was a new hope. It seemed like there was light at the end of the tunnel. He exposed all the corruption. Looked like everything was going to go our way. And then when Joe Biden ran, no. The Demopukes had a plan. And sure enough, they took that plan into action. Those the Dominion systems, the same systems they used down south, worked. They used down in Venezuela to get the socialist in office, worked. Nicolas Maduro turned it into a socialist country, and he's never left office since. It's been nothing but a dictatorship since then. And then, when he came, now that he's going to be in office tomorrow, it's now going to be called The Empire Strikes Back. Then the question is, when will the Return of the Jedi occur? I'm not sure that it'll ever happen. I really don't know if it'll ever happen. Because the Demopukes brainwashed so many people, even though this was a fraudulent election. I'm not so sure I'm not sure we can even recover from this. Yet the Demopukes from the mayor of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot, and the governor of New York say let's open the businesses back up, even though Donald Trump's been echoing that forever since he says that. You know what the problem is with that? Small businesses are already lost. Yet big businesses can recover because they can bring people back. But all the small businesses that are already suffering cannot recover. They're closed for good. That's what they don't get. All these smaller businesses are lost for good. Zero. Nothing left of them. There won't be anything left of those businesses. There will not be a thing left of any of those businesses in any of those states. At least in the city of Chicago, there won't be anything left of those small businesses. Hypocrisy is huge in those states. In that big city, in the big state of Empire State of New York. And then as of how we compare, then on the other stage, what's this communism, what's this civil war what's the upcoming civil war got to do with the past civil wars? Well, let's compare them. Well, let's do the rise of Hitler and the rise of Stalin compared to this monster that's about ready to take office. Well, the rise of Stalin was very simple. When the Russian Civil War took place, that's pretty much how it all occurred. Lenin was his mate, and he followed him. Lenin ended up killing the Tsar of Russia. Then the Russian Imperial, then no more Russia, then the Russian freedom was demolished. And it became a communist country known as the Soviet Union. It was known as the Soviet Union all the way up to 1990. Then when Lenin left office, I can't remember what year that was, I think 1930-some, Stalin took over. Then Stalin took command until almost his death, which was 1953. Stalin died in 1953, and then other ones were in control. I don't remember who took command after him. But the problem with these guys, now we talk about the rise of Hitler. Hitler could have easily been killed because he was on the German battlefront. Hitler was battling the Germans at the battlefront. He was wounded in action, retreating at the Battle of Somme. Surprisingly. 12th Division, in retreat. He was a private, got shot, he was wounded. A British super rifleman named Sergeant Henkel could have easily shot him. Or something like that. I can't remember what his name was. But he was a sergeant in the British Army. Could have easily shot him and killed him. I'm not sure if we would have had World War II. We might have. There's a lot of what ifs on that part. Too many what ifs there. But he didn't shoot him. He chose not to shoot a wounded German. He let him move on. Even though he shot other Germans that were retreating. He did not shoot this one retreating. This one just kept right on running. Hitler just kept right on running with the rest of his division. So, with that being said, the war was over. He was a socialist. Just like the Democrats are today. Or, aka, the Demipukes. So what happens? They had a rise up in the middle of the war. Middle of 1918, the German Civil War begins. A handful of battles, mainly the socialists versus the Weimar Republic, which is what it became. And this is pretty much what the Demipukes are pretty much planning. Even though the Demipukes that voted for Biden are blind enough to not see this. And it's already kind of happening even as we speak. When Hitler rose to power in 1923, I believe it was, when the situation happened, Hitler was arrested in the middle of in one battle. Hitler was arrested. His sentence would have been 5 years in prison. 5 to 8 years. Instead, he got 8 months. And in that 8 months, he wrote a book called Mein Kampf. And what did he... And he had a plan of his action in there. Of how he was going to rewrite history. And sure enough, what happened? He rewrote history. He cut off a lot of things. Took down statues, just like Stalin did. 2 different types of communism. He was a communist, just like Stalin. Took down certain statues that represented the Germans' freedom. And the Germans had their Bill of Rights, just like how we have our Bill of Rights. Came for their guns. I don't know how their amendments were compared to ours, but I'm just making this up. They took down the Weimar Republic Bill of Rights, which is the German Bill of Rights. When he went to power in 1933, which is when Hitler became the power. It's Nazi Germany came into power. Nazi Germany came into power in 1933. He was in power from there on out. He was very disappointed in the way Germany handled the war from World War I. Because retreat was not an option. He thought retreat should not be an option. That's the way he thought. Don't get me wrong. He was quite delusional. He was very delusional. Now, the difference between him and Stalin. Well, Stalin was kind of the same way. He said retreat should not be an option. But Stalin was more of a person that would pursue the enemy until they give up. While Hitler was more of a person that would pursue the enemy, that would just push the enemy all the way till the last man stands. But hardly anybody ever did that. But then World War II began when he invaded Poland. That's when World War II began. September 1st, 1939. World War II began. Almost to the time when that ended. 1942 is when the war began. Then close to 1945, he commits suicide. All because of one thing. He did not want to be captured by anybody. So he commits suicide. Dead. Nobody captured. Nobody could capture him. So he could not face any war crimes. That was his main plan. So he could not face any war crimes. The Germans, he did not want to face any war crimes against these buffoons. That he called buffoons. Which were the Germans. Which were the Americans/Russians. He hated the Russians. Because that's who he was going up against. Stalin. It was Stalin versus... To him, the French, the Americans, and all of them didn't matter. It was the Russians, aka the Soviets. He hated the Soviets more than everybody else. Even though he hated all of them. But the Soviets were another step. The Soviets were closing in. Even though the Americans were pretty much closer. But he didn't want to be captured by anybody. So he committed suicide. Because he knew that his other friend, his other close ally, was killed by everybody else in his own country. Mussolini. Who was also, surprisingly, who was his enemy at the time during World War I. They were killing Germans. Italy was on the side of the Allies during World War I. Italy could have easily gone the other way, but they didn't. They stayed on the side of the Allies during World War I. They were in the Triple Alliance, but they signed an alliance with the Allies, secret alliance with the Allies. And then they stayed neutral to 1915 and then entered the war with the side of the Allies. So sad. At the Somme in 1916, Verdun, the French pretty much, it's just a different type of look. But what's all this got to do with comparing this to the Democrats? A lot. A lot of similarities. The point is, the Demopukes want to, first off, take away the First Amendment right, which is what they're already starting to do. Take away our Second Amendment right, which is right to bear arms, which is on their second idea. It's very simple. They don't want us to have rights at all. They want to ban the Bill of Rights. They want to silence us, which is their first plan. Like Louis Farrakhan said, Hitler was a great man. What's that telling you? That's telling you a lot about these bastards. About these condescending pieces of shit who want to erase history, take down statues who fought even though they were Confederates on the other side of the war during the Civil War. They want to take down these statues and demolish what we served for. This is what they want to do with us. Eliminate our history. Eliminate everything we stood for. They don't want anything for us to have for in this country. We do not exist anymore, according to them. eliminate their adversaries by silencing us. First, this is just like how Hitler did it. This is how Hitler pretty much started his war on capitalism. First, he silenced conservatives. He silenced the capitalists by taking down the Weimar Republic, or AKA, as our situation is, destroyed the Bill of Rights. Then he went house to house. If you didn't have anything, if you had a gun, they would take your gun. Or if you don't give it up, pow, you're dead. Which is kind of what I'm guessing we may have here. I could be wrong, but I could be right. Let's see what happens. Then on the other hand here, we have, then they want to put all Trump supporters in gulags or other stuff like that. If you don't agree with them, you go elsewhere. This is what I'm seeing. I'm calling it how I see it. Socialism is gonna fail. This country's gonna fail. And then they want to tax the rich people. It's gonna fail. Small bit, $15 an hour. Sounds great. But I'll pass because the small business owners are gonna suffer. They're gonna lose everything. They're just gonna lose everything from top to bottom. Because that's when businesses suffer. Because buffoons on the top, like the president, want to enforce that kind of law in. So, this might be our last freedom of speech that we ever have. Well, I got things I gotta do. Didn't realize I've been on here this long. Well, we'll just have to see what else we gotta do. Well, y'all have a good day. Bye.